welcome to the Council District 2 Redistricting Community Meeting, where your council member is Councilmember Jim Waring. Every 10 years, the City of Phoenix conducts a redistricting process to gain public input on equalizing the population in each council district based on the results of the last census. So I want to thank each of you for your attendance today, as well as to introduce myself and then our redistricting team. So my name is Ginger Spencer, and I'm a Deputy City Manager with the City Manager's Office for the City of Phoenix. And along with me today, we have our City Clerk, who is Denise Archibald. Denise is leading the City Clerk's, the redistricting effort on behalf of the city. And then also we have our consultants who we've hired on board. And so we have Priti Mather, and then next to Priti is Sam Mather, and they're with ArcBridge Consulting and Training. I also just want to take a moment to thank all the staff who are assisting with this process. We also have engaged Chris Meyer, who is our former city attorney and city clerk. And Chris has worked on the redistricting process for the last 4 years, so a lot of knowledge and history there. And then I want to thank our team from the city clerk's office, as well as the communications office, and our, and our communications from Phoenix TV, Phoenix 11, as well as our main communications office. And then we do have an interpreter today who is Miss Elsie Duarte. And so with that, this, I just want to mention, is the first round of community meetings. So we're going to introduce the process today. We are going to take any questions that you may have, and then we'll come back in early September after you have been able to submit any maps of your own. And with that, I'll turn it over to our City Clerk, Denise Archibald.
Thank you. Good morning. As Ginger mentioned, I'm the City Clerk for Phoenix, and so I wanted to talk just a little bit about the redistricting process today. So we do redistricting, as Ginger mentioned, every 10 years. This year, based off of the 2020 census, we will do the same process that we've used in the last four times this, in 1990, in 2000, and in 2010, and now for 2020. To ensure an impartial and professional process, we, the city, we hire a team, a consultant with expertise in redistricting to help us with all of the data. And so in this case, we did select, through a procurement process and approval of the City Council, a consultant. As Ginger mentioned, it's ArcBridge Consulting and Training out of the Washington, D.C. area, and that is Priti and Sam Mather. We will have the 2 rounds of community participation in terms of input. We've got public meetings. This is the first round of the public meetings, and it's for the information, just to get out the information about how this process is going to work and how you can provide your input, which is one of the most important and key pieces of this process, is getting your input. And so we also, in particular, would like to know if you have input about communities of interest in your area, and let us know, what you think about the redistricting process. So we do have, after this first round, what will happen is, after the first round of meetings, we will open up. Right now we do have a website. It's Phoenixredistricting.com. It's on all of your materials. It's written down. And if you go there now, you can actually make comments currently and submit them. You can also email them. You can call us on the phone and provide comments too. After the first round of public meetings, on the 29th of June, on that same website, we will open up a feature that's create your own map. And so you'll be able to create your own map if you would like, and submit it to us as well for consideration. The consultant will take all of this input from the community, and then they will create a couple of plans and maps. And then we will come back out to the community in early September for the second round of public input with actual maps for you to consider and look at and provide input. And then after that, based on all of that input, then the consultant will finalize plans, one or a few, and present those as final plans to the City Council. And then the City Council will approve a new boundary map for the council districts. And that will become effective, the new boundaries, in January of 2024, and it'll be just in time for the mayor and odd-numbered council district election in November of 2024. And with that, I will turn it over to Priti for the presentation on the redistricting data.
Good morning, everyone. Hello. Good morning. My name is Preeti Mathur, and I am with Arcbridge Consulting, and we are based in the Washington, D.C. area. We are here to show you the data today, the 2010 data and the 2020 data, and then the guidelines for redistricting. So I'll show you all that, and I'm going to take you to my PowerPoint. And hopefully it's going to be a short one, but enough for you to get the information that we would like to present. So here on this slide, I'm showing you your current districts, and we are in D2, District 2. So you can see that this is District 2, and here on the top, we are showing you the 2010 data. Now, I know that many of you would like to see these numbers, and there are a lot of numbers to digest. This PowerPoint is going to be on the redistricting website, so don't worry about the numbers, it's all going to be there. So the reason why I show this 2010 data, because your current districts were drawn based on 2010 data. And now we have 2020 census data. And back in 2010, the population of the city of Phoenix was 1.4 million. And now the population has grown to 1.6 million. And here, back in 2010, our target population for each district was 180,704. And now, with the new population, our target is 201,117 people in each district. And once we do redistricting, we look at this number called maximum deviation. And this number means the difference between the most populated district and the least populated district. And that percentage should not be more than 5%, and I'm going to show you in the slides that will follow. But currently, the maximum deviation is 14.45%, which means that we do have to edit our boundaries and we cannot work with what we have, okay? So now moving on to the next slide, I show you here once again the 2020 numbers, the 2010 numbers, and we also show you total pop and voting age population. So all those numbers are there, and if you look at this side, we have all the racial categories that the census reports. And what we would like to get out of this slide is that the gain in population has been 162,507. That is the gain, which amounts to about 11.2% growth over the decade. So then we wanted to analyze where did Phoenix grow? So we looked at each district and we created a map here. The darker the color, that means the more the growth. So here we are in District 2, and you can see the District 2, and you can see also here that District 2 has had considerable growth. 28,981 people, which is about 29,000. And also what you can gather from this chart here is that each district grew, okay? But the biggest growth that you see here was in D7. So when we start to balance our districts, you will see that we will be taking, and even when you start to create your own plans, you would see that you're taking away areas. You would have to take away areas from D7, D2, D5, and even D8, okay? So all districts have grown. Some have grown more, some have grown less, and now what we have to do is see how we can balance everything out. So this shows you another map of the same Phoenix districts, and they are color-coded red and green. And what it is green districts are the ones which need to gain, and the red districts and the pink districts are the ones that need to give up areas so that we can balance the plan. So now you can see that D2 is in a pink district, which means D2 would have to lose. Now, if you look at the exact numbers, if you look at this is where the total population is given. This is the ideal population, and this is the deviation. So we are sitting at D2, and D2 is about 7,000 more than our target for each district, which is 201,017 people. So when we create our new districts, we would have to think of losing 6,000 to 7,000 people so that we can be within the deviations which are required by law. So having said that, and having seen the map, we kind of get an idea which districts would have to lose and which would have to gain. And we are here in D2, and D2 is the one which has to lose some population in order to balance. So let's look at this, the same information in a slightly different way. This is a target. You're seeing the dotted line, which is the target of 201,000. And you can see the districts which are under and the districts which are over. And of course, we are D2 here, and we are 7,000 more. And here the colors are the racial and ethnic composition of each district. So now that we know that we do have to edit the districts, and so we need to know what are the rules, how should we go about doing it. So here on this slide, I'm going to show you the redistricting requirements and guidelines. So some of them are federally required, federally mandated. Some are based on your city charter. And some of the others that you see here are guidelines. And the reason we call them guidelines because they're competing, and we have to see what is more important for each district. So the first one we talk about is equal population. So the law says each district should have equal population as much as possible. And we know our equal population, our target, is a pretty high number, but that is what our target is, 201,017. But since we cannot have equal, so the law gives us that you could have a maximum deviation of under 5%, and for each district, it should be under 1% as much as possible, okay? And then, of course, since redistricting is all about representation, we need to make sure that we preserve the minority voting rights, and we need to make sure that everyone is fairly represented, okay? Now let's talk about the guidelines. One of the reasons why we are here meeting with you is because we want to get your feedback. We want to know about your communities of interest. So we can look at the data, but you are the ones who live in your communities, and you know which communities should stay together. So we are here to gather that feedback. And while we are here, this is not the only opportunity. There is a website, there is an email, there is a phone line that you could provide your comments. So we have already started to receive quite a few comments through the website, Phoenix.Redistricting.com. So that is one which helps us when we create the new districts, and it helps you also when you will get the opportunity to make your districts if you would like to do that. Then here, we want to make sure that our districts are contiguous, compact. We don't want to be thinking of gerrymandering, because whenever redistricting comes, that is the word that comes to everybody's mind. So we want to make sure that we want to make our districts which are contiguous and compact, okay? And we would like to preserve the core of the current districts, which means that when we create the new districts, we just don't want to totally redo them, that they should preserve the way they are, somewhat, the core at least, okay? Now the next is continuity of representation. we want to make sure that our incumbents, our current incumbents, still live in their own districts. So we look at their residents and make sure that when the new districts are created, we haven't redistricted them out of their own district. Okay? And then we look at political subdivisions. Now, City of Phoenix is in Maricopa County, and the way we are advised to do that is to use their precincts, the county precincts. And that is what you will see. And in fact, you may have picked up a map which has the current precincts. Okay? So with that, I'm going to show you the data. Just once again, we are comparing. We are comparing the 2010 data and want to see the racial and ethnic composition of the districts and of the city as a whole. So currently, the City of Phoenix has 4 non-Hispanic white majority districts and 4 Hispanic. And if you are wondering what these colors are, you can look at this legend here. The yellows are non-Hispanic white and the reds are Hispanic. So when we look at the districts, you can see only 2 colors. So we decided, let's look at the block level and see where the majority population is by census blocks. So here you can see some more details. You can see some greens, you can see some blues, and the greens are for non-Hispanic Asian, and the blue is for non-Hispanic blacks. So we saw this, and then we said, let's look at 2020 data and see if anything has changed. So now I'll take you to 2020 data, and pretty much at the district level, it's still the same. We have 4 non-Hispanic white districts and 4 Hispanic majority districts. And this is at the block level, and you can see, how at the block level, we can see data at more finer level, more granular level. And so pretty much the city has maintained the racial and ethnic composition from 2010 to 2020. But of course, when you look at the numbers, things have changed. But this is the data, and this data is called the Public Law 94-171 data. So it's a data set that we are required to use for redistricting. So now here is the data for D2. And I showed you that D2 has gained almost 29,000 people, and that we are 7,000 more than our target, which means that we would have to draw a district in such a way that we lose 7,000 people or somewhere close to that, because we do have these maximum deviations. So we can work with numbers, but those are 6,000 to 7,000. If we lose, then we should be in good shape. Okay? So here, these numbers, we compare again the 2010 and the total population, voting age population, and the same for 2020. And what we have highlighted is that these are the percentages for non-Hispanic white, which happens to be in majority for District 2. Okay, so with that, what we did was, we looked at the map, we looked at the numbers, and we said, maybe we can create a plan A, which is nothing else but an example for you to see that these changes are possible. And what we are here to hear from you is that, oh, this is not going to work, or this could work. So remember, we are keeping all the redistricting guidelines. We are looking at contiguity, compactness. So based on that, we have come up with some suggestions, and we are using precincts, trying to keep them as a whole. So let's look at what you think about the example that we have, suggested edits. Before I talk about the suggested edits, I just wanted to give you an overview let's see, this is what we are starting with, and our maximum deviation is 14.45. But when we drew a plan A, which I like to call as an example, as a suggested plan, you can see that we have been able to take away almost 6,000 people from D2, and our deviation is within 1%, and the overall deviation looks really good. It's just 1.38, the maximum deviation. So now let's see what areas would be impacted and what does it look like for you. So here is a summary of changes. So I'm not sure if you all are familiar with the precincts, but I would refer to them here. Bluefield precinct. So some precincts were split between districts 2 and districts 3. So what we did was we said, what if we put them together? And that way we would be bringing areas together. So here primarily we have Bluefield. This was split in D2 and D3. And I'll show you on the map where it is, because right now you may be thinking, I don't know where Bluefield is. Okay, and the same thing with Grover's precinct. It was split and we put it together in our example plan. Then there is this precinct called Wiki Up, which we thought we could do it for D3. And then the Hillary precinct. And this was split too, so now some changes between D2 and D3, okay? So now let's take a look at it on the map. So here I'm talking about Bluefield precinct, and it is in this part of D2. And it borders D3, so we thought this part of Bluefield was already in D3. And then, you know, D2 currently comes down here and goes back up. So we thought, what if we take this part and give it to D3 and kind of unify it? And this will give D3 2,700 people, which means these 2,700 people would be taken away from D2 and given to D3. So we start with, like, we have to lose 7,000, so 2,000 we got from here, 2,000 to 3,000. Okay? And then we have also given these, defined this area. So if you did not know the precincts that well, but you knew the streets, then you could say, oh, okay, this is the area, this is how it's defined. So we are 3,000 down, and we still have to lose 4,000. So this is one edit that we are suggesting. Now the second one in that same area, you can see Bluefield up there, and Grover's here. District 2 currently kind of comes down here and goes up. So once again, it was split in D2 and D3. So we thought if we could combine it, make it easier. So this is a suggestion, okay? So, and once again, here we are defining the area. So 7th Ave, and then, you know, all the streets which this area is bound by. And the advantage in doing this change is that we have put two precincts which was split, we put them together. Okay, so the third change, so this gives us 4,000. So we are like about 7,000 already out, so we should be in good shape. But then there is a change that we did, and once again, our motivation, our goal was to keep the precincts together as much as possible. So the next change here is this precinct, Wiki Up. and this is giving us 3,000. So this is currently part of D2, but we have assigned it to D3. And if you're wondering where it is, it's the same area that you're looking at, and it's right next to Bluefields and Grovers, and Wickiup is right there. And so here, Wickiup precinct is in D3. So it was not split, it's a whole precinct. And now if we look at it, we're about 9 to 10,000 we have taken away. So what that means is D2 is a little bit in negative. So we thought in order to balance things out, there was another precinct which was split, so we thought, what if we put it together in D2? So if you look at this part, so before we were looking at this area of D2 and D3, and now we are looking at this part of D2 and D3. So here this precinct, Hillary precinct was split, so half of it was in D2 and half of it was in D3. So we said since we took a lot from D2 and gave to D3, we thought if we can give this back to D2, we would be balanced. So here we got about 1,000 people more, 1,300 people more back into D2. Once again, this is like the act of balancing, and that's what we have tried to do it as an example, which we call Plan A. So these are the only changes that we are recommending. And with this, if I just want to take you back a little bit here. So with this, we were able to achieve this and the deviation here. And I showed you that the overall deviation was way under 5%. It was 1.38%. But that is looking at the whole county, whole city. So here, these are the numbers, and these are the changes that I showed you. And with this, I'm done with the presentation, and I'm here to see your questions, your comments, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Priti. All right, so as Priti said, we're going to open up for any questions and comments. We do have a microphone right here in the middle of the room. And our first speaker that we have is Linda Buzzum.
Thank you for hearing me today. It's a pleasure to be here. I first would like to say that everything that happens in Phoenix actually affects the whole state of Arizona. And so while I think that what you did to districts 1 and 2, I think are fine, but what I'd really like to see is that you increase the districts, say from 8 to 12, to better represent all of the constituents, the people that live here in Phoenix. I think it's really critical. I mean, we're now at 201,000. It keeps increasing and increasing. We have to nip that in the bud. So thank you very much.
Ms. Buzzum, thank you for that comment, and that has comment that has come up in other community meetings as well as by members of council, including Councilman Waring. And so right now, the Phoenix Charter basically states that Phoenix has a mayor plus 8 city council districts. After we conclude this process, though, we still have retained our consultants, Priti and Sam, and then we're going to start looking at what could that be in order to expand and have additional districts. And then in order to make that work, we would basically just call an election and then bring that to Phoenix voters and basically make that decision. But it is something that is in the charter, so it would require the approval of our Phoenix voters. All right, thank you. Are there other questions or comments? You don't have to submit a card. You can come up. Yes, if you would just come to the mic, though, if you don't mind, and introduce yourself.
My name is Steve, and I'm grateful that you guys are doing this. Given that you've already considered expanding the number of precincts in the council, what are the pros and cons? Can you we're kind of simple people here, at least I am. And I don't know what the negative ramifications of that would be or what the positive side. So can you kind of enlighten us?
Steve, thank you for that comment and question. So right now, again, it's very preliminary. Basically, we've just been asked to look into that for the future. Right now, though, as you can see from the presentation, the council districts, the council members are basically representing almost 201,000 constituents. And so the concern there is that's a lot. And so, and then to your point, Phoenix is continuing to grow. So perhaps if we had additional council districts, then it might be more manageable for the council members as well as for their staff as well. And then from a constituent standpoint, but your councilman and his staff with Christine, they're very responsive, but also too, maybe for some, there might be even a better response. And so again, just making it more manageable. Okay, yes, if you would come to the microphone and introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Ana Sanchez and I'm in this district. So I understand population has grown. My concern is security. Our police force has not grown accordingly. This is one of the things that the city council discusses in their meetings, and I have not seen the bar moved in this area. And yet I understand the need to redistrict the area. However, this increasing population has not granted Arizona any more electoral votes in Congress. We still have the same 11 seats, right? And therefore, if it's not good enough, this population growth to increase our electoral votes, I do not support increasing the number of districts. Anytime we increase government, we increase spending and we increase taxes. Okay, and going from 8 to 14, 14 is an even number, is not an odd number, it's an even number, and it would make the voting within the city council very difficult when you have a par number. So going from 8 to 14, absolutely no way. And I, again, do not support the increasing the number of districts within Phoenix, unless we get more police force. Basically. So another question I had is, I understand and agree with most of what you said here on our lines. It totally makes sense looking at the map. I do have a question about, it looks like Lola is also split between D2 and D3. And I was just wondering, and this is just a question because I don't live in that area, why did you choose Wiki Up, which is a brand new district, versus Lola? Why did you choose that? I mean, I'm sure it has to do with the number of people, but I just want a clarification. Thank you.
So there are a few comments that we'll address. So from a security standpoint, yes, that is very important. We've definitely heard that from District 2, from the community, from Phoenix residents. And as you know, our councilman, Jim Waring, actually serves on the Public Safety and Justice Subcommittee. As far as adding additional police officers, that is done through the city's operating budget. And so right now that continues to be a priority for the city of Phoenix. Steve had asked earlier, what are some pros, what are some cons with adding? And so I think you were able to address perhaps some of the cons as well. And that's the beauty of Phoenix and our public engagement process. We value all opinions. We want to hear everyone's feedback, and then that will be very helpful to the council as they're making that decision. But we will have another public process for that as well, so we'll be able to get everyone's input. And then lastly, in regards to Lola, and so again, the districts that we were proposing, the Bluefield, Grovers, and Wickiup, those are all pretty much in the same area, but we can address Lola as well and draw your attention to that. And Priti, I would turn it over to you.
We did look at Lola, and I don't remember the numbers off the top here, but I think that numbers-wise, Hillary was a smaller number, and that is what we did. But once again, you have to keep in mind that there is opportunity. So we will definitely take it back and try Lola, but I know that Lola is one of our bigger precincts. And the area that we were looking, I think, was more then the numbers were supporting, but I'll have to check back. So when you get the opportunity to draw your districts, try it out and let us know, because you know your communities more than anyone else, and we are here to get your feedback.
And so to add to what Prithi's saying, on June 29th, there will be an interactive mapping tool available at PhoenixRedistricting.com, and so you'll be able to draw out your own maps. And then, using the Lola example, what you'd want to do is there'll be information available on the website as well that shows how many people are in that precinct. And so as you're drawing the maps and that sort of thing and moving things around, then that's what we're looking at and trying to balance. Yes, sir, if you wouldn't mind, come to the mic.
Yeah, I moved here in 1977 when my neighborhood, which is 58th Street and Shea was a 2-lane road, and that was the northern edge of development in Phoenix. It's been around a while. I've seen the area develop. I've been president of my homeowners association, Country Estates, in that area. It's been fun to watch what's going on up there. I live in, obviously, Orange Tree precinct, which, if you look at it, could have been considered as low-hanging fruit to log off. But in terms of community of interest and school districts and a lot of other things, I'm glad you left it, and I hope it stays that way. And yes, I'll make a comment officially as well. But in reality, having watched that area develop and been part of it for a long time on various aspects, I think Orange Tree should stay in District 2, because it has, like I say, community of interest, school districts, a lot of other stuff going forward, that's really where it belongs, even though we would be so easy to snip off. But anyway, so for that input from Orange Tree, keep it the way it is. Thank you.
And sir, could we get your name, please?
Sure, Don Hesselbrock, Hesselbrock.
All right.
Jim Waring knows me well.
Yes, Councilman Waring knows a lot of his residents very well, and thank you for that comment. And I'm a Phoenix native, so you took me back. Yes, I remember when SR 51 stopped at Shea Boulevard, so thank you for that comment, and it's noted. Well, now SR 51 are correct, and no, it was not. Yes, ma'am, if you could come. I remember in my little Nissan.
Thank you. My name is Deborah LaPlante, and I'm not in this district. I'm in District 5, but your District 5 meeting conflicts with a Haven Advisory Committee. I'm part of, in these, we talk about layers, I'm part of the North Glen Square Neighborhood Association, so 27th Avenue to 35th Avenue, Northern to Glendale. We're a very active association, so while you're looking at precincts, my concern when this first came up was, do neighborhoods that are very active and together and are represented by one council person end up getting split and then have to deal with 2 council people where things might get lost in between? We're asking for this to happen, and all of a sudden that district didn't do it and this district didn't do it. So that's just another layer to think about, and I think the interactive map may help with that, and I know that District 5 needs to reduce as well. So when I was looking at that, I was going, well, would that be something where they move it back to the freeway in District 5 from 7th Avenue, or would they move it even further and then our neighborhood gets split and now we don't have a cohesive voice with that? So that was one of the things. And I had a question as well about what's happening with the city and increasing, because I know, isn't it Philadelphia that has 17 council people for about the same size population? And so, and they have an odd number, so then you don't get the split. It's like the Supreme Court, we need an odd number, right? So those are some things that I'm hoping that you'll consider as you work through that process. So thank you.
All right, and thank you for your comments and for attending this meeting. And one of the things that we do have some neighborhood associations. Let's see, yeah. We do have some neighborhood associations. We do have some communities that are represented by more than one council member. And so that's where the communities of interest come into play, and then that's where we want to hear your feedback. Some like having more than one council member, and some would prefer one council member. So really that's where we want to hear your voice as residents to see what you would prefer. And so we'll note that, and we'll share that information with the councilwoman as well. And that was the North Glen Area Neighborhood Association from 27th to 35th, Northern to Glendale. So we've got that. Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Yes, please come up and introduce yourself.
I just want to give you my card. We kind of showed up at this meeting on a whim. My name is Annette, and we've supported Jim Waring for, gosh, over 20 years. You're doing a great job moderating the meeting, by the way. Thank you. Your feedback is wonderful. I just really want to echo what everybody has said so far. I do like the idea of possibly thinking about expanding the city council member crew from 8 to maybe 10. I know 12 was suggested. I can't remember who did that, but huh? Oh, interest. Okay, well, whatever. But increasing that. So I just wanted to be on record as saying that. And I love what somebody said in here about better security, you know, upping. And I know that's also something you're looking at. And I like the idea if the congressmen are number, if you can get the charter changed and increased. I like the idea of more electoral votes as well. I think that's important for that to all be reflected. So thank you for all your effort and time on this project. It's clear you guys are putting a lot of work into that, and we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Annette, thank you for your comments, and definitely we got this all noted and to be addressed, so thank you very much. And we'll be sharing these comments with the councilman as well. All right.
Have you considered splitting Phoenix into 2 cities? If it's becoming too large and unmanageable?
Yeah. So the question was, have we considered splitting Phoenix into 2 cities? And so, no. Not through this process. Yeah, I'm a native, so I take pride in being the 5th largest city, but that would be a different process altogether. But thank you for that question. Yes, Steve?
On that line, how long have we had this community council? And compare that to the growth of the city.
I believe the city of Phoenix started to have districts back in 1990.
Oh.
Yeah, or probably 1980. And they've had 8 districts, and that's the way it has been.
Little did they know, right, how much it would grow.
Yes, Preeti's correct. Yeah, we started the district system, it was established in 1982. And so that's where, by basically an election as well.
Boy, is that outdated.
Okay, well, we want to thank each of you for coming out this morning. Thank you for spending part of your Saturday morning with us. As a reminder, we just want to say you can get all of this information and submit your feedback, your input, your comments at phoenixredistricting.com. And then if you want to email us with questions or comments, you can also do that at phoenixredistricting@phoenix.gov, or you can always call us at 602-261-8683. And we look forward to seeing you again at the 2nd round of interviews, but getting your input before then. Thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you.